Hi, my name is Zach Elkins. I'm a professor at the University of Texas. I'm here to talk about the website Constitute, which is an indexed repository of constitutions, and also to tell you about this classroom exercise in which you can use this website to think about ideas to change the U.S. Constitution. This is an exercise I've developed in collaboration with my colleagues Joellen Ambrose, Jesse Bauer, and Tom Ginsberg. Tom and I have been working since 2006 on a research project called the Comparative Constitutions Project. And our primary goal in this project is to collect all the world's constitutions and analyze them and understand what's in them. And this involved, of course, first going back for the last couple hundred years and identifying when constitutions were changed, when they were replaced, when they were amended, when they were suspended, etc. And then identifying the document associated with each of those changes. And then, of course, reading them and analyzing them and producing a data set of essentially the inventory of and contents of these constitutions. And we identified nearly 1,000 constitutional systems and the amendments within these systems. And the idea behind this data set really was to answer a set of research questions regarding the origins and the consequences of constitutional choices. It's also been very helpful in the classroom when you think about comparative law and alternatives to constitutional choices in a particular jurisdiction. And as you'll see, it's the data set and the project has been useful for people who are actually writing constitutions who want to think about options. A little bit of historical background. Here in this chart, you can see we've charted the top line, the number of countries in the world, which is of course increased. The dotted line, rather the dashed line, represents those that actually have constitutions. So you can see it's a genre that's more or less ubiquitous, at least after the 1920s or so. Nearly every single country in the world has a constitution, with a few exceptions. The bars represent changes, or rather replacements of these constitutions. So you can see that not only is the genre of constitutional text actually ubiquitous, but it's also being changed really all the time, but not in the United States. In 2013, we partnered with Google to produce a repository, an indexed repository of the world's constitutions. And the reason was we started to work with constitutional drafters, and we realized that, they were kind of interested in constitutional theory and models and data, but more than anything else, they were under a deadline. I could use some actual model text. And so they would ask us to give us sample texts for provisions about, say, the environment or the right to privacy or one topic or another. And really the natural answer to that was to build a repository in which we could get out of the way and they could search these constitutions themselves. Okay, so here's the Constitute website, constituteproject.org, and here's the front page, and you enter here. And the first view that you're given is what we call list view. And this is a list of all the constitutions that are on the site. And we focus primarily on constitutions that are currently in force for nearly every country. We do have a few historical constitutions and draft constitutions, but that's another story. Typically what you do is to, and you of course can scroll through here and read any of these constitutions just by clicking on them. But typically what you do is look for a topic, and one thing I'm interested in these days are citizenship clauses. So I might start typing in citizenship and the topics start popping up. And here I'm interested in requirements for birthright citizenship. If I click that, you can see any constitution of the 200 or so that have something to say about that are here. And you can see 173 constitutions have that. So it's something that's typically in constitutions. And then you can look at the excerpts on this particular topic by just expanding. And here's Afghanistan's. That's interesting. Maybe Angola's. And you can read that in list view. You can also jump down if you want to a country. So say I'm in the C's here, might look at Colombia's. And if you're interested in any of these, something you usually do is you pin this. So you might say, okay, I want to save that for later. You can pin it. Let's imagine you found Costa Rica is interesting. You can pin that as well. And once you do that, you'll see that it shows up in your pin drawer. Now that's useful. You can delete those. I'm going back to list view because something that's actually quite helpful is to pin the whole search. And that's this button that does that. And then if you do that, you can see the entire search is in your pin drawer. And then obviously you could, if we pinned individual ones, you could read it here. But if you pin the whole search, it's useful to export those excerpts somewhere else. You can do that to Google Docs, or just open it up as a PDF or as a CSV file if you want to do sort of more structured analysis, I guess, on it. But if you click that, depending on your internet connection, it should actually open up in another tab for you. And if you're a member of some subcommittee on citizenship policies, you could then take that document and bring it in with you to the committee room and have all the options at your disposal. Okay, we'll check back with that in a second. A couple other things. Well, there it is. Okay, so open that up and you can see there it is, every single excerpt related to birthright citizenship for every country is there. So a useful document. Now, going back to list view for a second, you notice that when I asked for birthright citizenship, I started typing in a keyword. But of course, we have this menu at the left, and you can drill down into any of these and find constitutional topics. And this is useful, obviously, since sometimes we don't even know what's in constitutions. So this menu of some 300 topics will give you a sense of what's typically in a constitution, and you can click on any of these that might interest you. So, for example, languages, official languages is something that's been something I've been looking at recently. So if we click that, you can see, 156 constitutions have something to say about official languages. Okay, now you've had a tour of Constitute. Let me tell you about a set of exercises that my colleagues and I have been putting together for use with Constitute. One of them, probably my favorite, is the 28th Amendment exercise. And in this one, you'll have an opportunity to think about provisions in the rest of the world's constitutions which may be useful for the U.S. context. And of course, the backdrop is the U.S. Constitution, which is very old. It's been changed very seldom. It was written originally for a society of about 4 million farmers. And of course, the U.S. has gotten much more complicated over the years, and other constitutions have been written that have showed us other ways to do democratic politics. So it makes sense to look out there and see what's there. We developed this exercise at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia. We have a lab there that they graciously built for us, and we would bring people in to think through alternative provisions for the U.S. Constitution, but then also cornerstone provisions really for any constitution in the world. And here's just a shot of the lab, and in this particular case, it was our inaugural exercise, and we brought in international consultants from the world to do this particular exercise. But we've done this all over the world, and here's a shot from the Netherlands and Colombia, and also a fourth grade classroom in Austin, Texas. So you can do it anywhere with anywhere from 5 to 250 people. And it's a pretty simple exercise. The first thing you do is to read through Constitute and the world's constitutions, topic by topic, presumably thinking through topics that most interest you and you think would be very relevant and amenable for the U.S., for change in the U.S. Constitution. Then you record that information, that is the provision that you think we should consider, from which country it comes from, and the topic label. And then there's a period of deliberation. You present the proposal, your other delegates to the simulated constitutional assembly, talk through it, and then there's a period of voting at the end. And so what it does, if I could go back for a second, it allows you to engage in 4 stages of constitution making. A research stage, proposal, debate and deliberation, and then some sort of voting or choice. So it's kind of a mini version, microcosm of a constitutional assembly, which is interesting. I'll leave you on this slide here, which is a photo of that international group I mentioned before that participated in that inaugural version of this exercise. And it was fun then. It's been fun in all sorts of classrooms all over the world, and I think you'll enjoy it. Feel free to come back to me with any questions or concerns or thoughts you have on this. Thanks very much.